Have you ever wondered about the incredible story of how the nation of Israel left Egypt? It's a tale filled with drama, miracles, and a journey against all odds. It all starts generations earlier, with a young man named Joseph. You might remember him, the one with the colorful coat, sold into slavery by his own brothers. But what seemed like a tragedy was actually part of a much bigger plan. Through a series of incredible events, Joseph went from a prisoner in an Egyptian dungeon to the second most powerful man in the entire kingdom, right next to Pharaoh himself. When a severe famine struck the land, Joseph's wisdom saved not only Egypt, but also his own family. His brothers, who had sold him years ago, traveled to Egypt seeking food, and in a powerful moment of forgiveness and reconciliation, they were reunited. Joseph brought his entire family, the descendants of his father Jacob, to live in Egypt. Pharaoh welcomed them, giving them the best land, the land of Goshen, to settle in. And there, in this foreign land, the family of Jacob, also known as Israel, began to grow. They were fruitful and multiplied, and soon, their numbers swelled from a small clan of 70 people into a vast and mighty nation within the borders of Egypt. For a while, things were good. The memory of Joseph and all he had done for Egypt was honored. But as the years turned into decades, and decades into centuries, a new pharaoh rose to power. The scripture says this new king did not know Joseph. He looked at the growing population of the Israelites with suspicion and fear. He saw their numbers not as a blessing, but as a threat. What if a war broke out? Would these foreigners side with Egypt's enemies? This fear turned into a cruel and calculated plan of oppression. The new pharaoh decided to enslave the Israelites. He put harsh taskmasters over them, forcing them to build massive storage cities, Pithom and Ramesses, with back-breaking labor. They were compelled to make bricks from mud and straw, toiling under the hot Egyptian sun day after day. But something amazing happened. The more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. The Egyptians' plan was bad. Frustrated, and even more fearful, Pharaoh's cruelty escalated. He commanded the Hebrew midwives to kill all newborn Israelite boys. But the midwives feared God more than Pharaoh, and they secretly let the boys live. Enraged, Pharaoh then issued a terrifying decree to all his people. Every newborn Hebrew boy was to be thrown into the Nile River. It was into this world of terror and despair that a baby boy was born to a Levite couple. His mother saw that he was a special child and couldn't bear to follow Pharaoh's command. For 3 months, she hid him. But as he grew, she knew she couldn't hide him any longer. So, with a heavy heart, she wove a small basket out of papyrus, coated it with tar and pitch to make it waterproof, and gently placed her son inside. She set the basket among the reeds along the bank of the Nile, her daughter Miriam watching from a distance to see what would happen. In an amazing turn of events, Pharaoh's own daughter came down to the Nile to bathe. She spotted the basket and sent her maid to retrieve it. When she opened it, she saw the baby crying, and her heart went out to him. At that moment, Miriam bravely approached and asked, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" Pharaoh's daughter agreed. And so, the baby's own mother was paid to nurse and care for him. When the child was older, he was brought to Pharaoh's daughter, and she adopted him as her own son. She named him Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." Moses grew up in the splendor of the Egyptian palace, educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. He was powerful in speech and action, but he never forgot his true identity. One day as a young man, he went out to see his own people, the Hebrew slaves. He saw an Egyptian beating one of them and, in a fit of rage, he killed the Egyptian and buried him in the sand. The next day, he saw 2 Hebrews fighting and tried to intervene, but one of them retorted, "Are you going to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Moses was terrified. He realized his secret was out. When Pharaoh heard of it, he tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Egypt and went to live in the land of Midian. There, Moses became a shepherd, married a woman named Zipporah, and started a new life. Seemingly far away from the troubles of his people in Egypt, he spent 40 years in the wilderness, tending his father-in-law's flock. It must have seemed like his past life in Egypt was just a distant memory. But God had not forgotten his people, nor had he forgotten Moses. One day, while leading his flock near Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, Moses saw something extraordinary. He saw a bush that was on fire, but was not burning up. As he went closer to investigate this strange sight, a voice called out to him from within the bush, "Moses! Moses! It was the voice of God!" God told Moses that he had seen the misery of his people in Egypt and heard their cries. He was going to rescue them and bring them to a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And then came the shocking part. God said, "So now, go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." Moses was stunned. He was filled with doubt. Who was he to go to Pharaoh? He was a fugitive, a simple shepherd. He made excuse after excuse. "What if they don't believe me? I'm not a good speaker. I'm slow of speech and tongue." But God was patient. He gave Moses signs to perform. His staff would turn into a snake. His hand would become leprous and then be healed. And as for his speaking, God promised to be with him and teach him what to say. He even appointed Moses' brother, Aaron, to be his spokesman. Reluctantly, Moses agreed. He returned to Egypt, a changed man with a divine mission. Together, Moses and Aaron went before the mighty Pharaoh. They delivered God's message. "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go." Pharaoh's response was arrogant and dismissive. "Who is the Lord, that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Not only did he refuse, but he made the Israelites' lives even harder. He commanded that they no longer be given straw to make their bricks. They had to gather it themselves, but still produce the same number of bricks. The people were crushed, and they blamed Moses and Aaron. This set the stage for a mighty confrontation. A battle not just between Moses and Pharaoh, but between the God of Israel and the gods of Egypt. God sent a series of 10 devastating plagues upon Egypt, each one demonstrating his supreme power. The Nile River turned to blood. Frogs swarmed the land. Gnats and flies infested every corner. The livestock of the Egyptians died. Boils broke out on people and animals. Hail of unprecedented size rained down, destroying crops and people. Locusts devoured whatever the hail had left. A thick darkness covered Egypt for 3 days, a darkness that could be felt. With each plague, Pharaoh's heart hardened. He would sometimes promise to let the people go in a moment of desperation, only to change his mind as soon as the plague was lifted. Finally, God announced the 10th and final plague, the most terrible of all. At midnight, the firstborn son in every Egyptian household would die. From the firstborn of Pharaoh on his throne to the firstborn of the slave girl at her handmill, along with the firstborn of all the livestock. But God provided a way of escape for the Israelites. He instructed each family to take a perfect year-old lamb, slaughter it, and paint some of its blood on the sides and top of the doorframes of their houses. When the angel of death passed through Egypt that night, he would see the blood and pass over that house, sparing the firstborn inside. This event is what we now know as the Passover. That night, a loud wail rose up throughout Egypt. There was not a house where someone was not dead. The devastation was complete. A grief-stricken and defeated Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron in the middle of the night and cried, "Up! Leave my people! You and the Israelites! Go, worship the Lord as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds and go, and also bless me." The Egyptians, desperate for the Israelites to leave, urged them on, giving them silver, gold, and clothing. After 430 years in Egypt, the nation of Israel, some 600,000 men on foot, plus women and children, walked out of the land of their slavery. They left not as fugitives, but as a liberated nation, plundering their captors on the way out. God led them not by the shortest route, but by way of the desert toward the Red Sea. He guided them as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. But the story wasn't over. Once again, Pharaoh's heart hardened. "What have we done?" he said. "We have let the Israelites go and have lost their services." He mustered his entire army, including his elite chariots, and pursued them. The Israelites, trapped between the charging Egyptian army and the vast Red Sea, were terrified. They cried out to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die?" But Moses told them, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Then God commanded Moses to raise his staff and stretch out his hand over the sea. All that night, a strong east wind blew, and the waters of the Red Sea parted, forming a wall of water on their right and on their left. The Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground. The Egyptians charged in after them, but once all the Israelites were safely on the other side, God told Moses to stretch out his hand again. The sea returned to its normal flow, and the entire army of Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen were swallowed by the waves. Not one of them survived. The Israelites saw the great power the Lord had displayed against the Egyptians, and they put their trust in him and in his servant Moses. This miraculous escape, however, was just the beginning of another long journey. They were free from Egypt, but they were now in the vast, unforgiving wilderness of Sinai. They were headed for the promised land, but the journey would take 40 years. 40 years of wandering, of testing, of learning to trust God for their daily needs. He provided manna from heaven to eat, water from a rock to drink. He gave them his laws at Mount Sinai, including the 10 Commandments, establishing a covenant with them. These years in the desert were meant to shape them, to humble them, and to transform them from a nation of slaves into a people worthy of the land he had promised to their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's a powerful reminder that deliverance from bondage is often just the first step on a much longer journey toward the ultimate promise. Thank you for watching. If this story inspires you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. We'll see you in the next video.